speaking to his disciples, and he said to them, look, after I've been risen, I'll meet you back in Galilee. And it was just, how many times have we read that and never really thought that much of it, and then I had that thought, this thought came in, what's significant about Galilee? What's significant? And then I just really had this prompting that I needed to check this out a little bit further, and so that's what I've been entertaining myself at for a little while now. And I'd like to ask you today, has anyone here ever felt that you've been born the wrong side of the track, the wrong side of town? Has anyone ever felt that what someone said, I think, actually what Josiah said earlier on, if you're born into a situation like in the car system, then you can't get out. That's how you're born, unless you're renamed. And so I thought that's interesting that Josiah brought that up, because that's very, very close to what I thought I'd talk about today. Galilee. And so, I don't know about you, but I hear so many stories about people, and particularly perhaps not much now, we do see it if we open our eyes, but so many times so-and-so is born on the wrong side of the track, the wrong side of town, and because of that, there's a bit of prohibition about how much involvement they're going to have with this side of the track, if you know what I mean. We had a bit of that water tank. Yes, we did. Sure, mention that? No. There was a little town, which will remain nameless. That was just out of Watertown, and basically it had its own culture, and it was probably in the eyes of the border town lights, not a very good culture. It had a bit of a reputation, and the people that came out of there had oftentimes a bit of a reputation. And it had its problems: alcohol, drugs, just a whole lot of relationship problems, violence, the whole works. And if you said that you lived in this particular little town, then there was a stigma automatically attached to you. This is the sort of thing I'm talking about today. And so I'm talking about Galilee, but from a place of relevance, because I really believe that if we can start to get a bit of an understanding of what Galilee meant in the day of Jesus, as far as culture is concerned, and what it meant as far as his ministry is concerned, and what it means as far as our ministry, now our own perceptions are concerned, then we're going to have an altogether, I believe, different perspective about what the ministry is all about, and how we can relate to that ministry. And it was really quite, to me, and I hope the same for you, it was quite enlightening in a lot of ways. We actually, because I often hear about Jesus of Galilee, Jesus of Nazareth, but I've never really given it all that much thought until the last couple of 3 weeks. And I think if we get a clear understanding of the background of Jesus, and it gives us a clear understanding of how his ministry was actually received in the day, but also significantly gives us a greater insight into the nature of the mission of the church today as well. And the ultimate goal of spreading the gospel full time, because you see, if we see ourselves ultimately as ambassadors for the kingdom, and our duty is ultimately to be spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ wherever we are, in whatever context that we live and work, 24 hours a day, no matter whether we're a pastor, whether we're a teacher, a nurse, or whatever, a labourer, a businessman, then as a Christian, our ultimate goal is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and enlarge the kingdom. Would you agree? That's ultimately what we're called to do the context in which we do it comes out of our culture and out of our workplace and history. And there's been a bit of an issue concerning how the gospel is preached and how it's spread over a long, long time, beginning right back then, because you see, we cannot have a uniform gospel preached over all cultures and expect all cultures to understand it. And what I mean by that is, in those days, the culture was basically, it was preached from a Greco-Roman culture. So you see, the apostles actually preached out of that understanding. The Bible was interpreted from Aramaic to Greek. And then from there, these days, it's been translated into English, and so quite a lot gets lost in translation, and the meaning can quite often be distorted or lose its power, in a sense. And so the uniform concept of mission over all cultures doesn't really actually work unless we can actually understand the culture into which we're trying to preach this gospel. So it's no good having a uniform pulpit gospel message that is going to be relevant to all cultures around the place today. You understand what I'm saying with that? We need to be a little sensitive. And so we need to read the times and our culture in order to hit the target well. And I think you probably find that in most cases, the churches that are growing the most successful usually have managed to read the times and their culture perhaps the best. And so they can preach a message that is relevant to the people group that they're actually targeting. And so it's very, very important. And I think that when you consider that the Christian church overall, and I'm talking over the whole context, is in decline, then we need to take a bit of notice about what we're trying to deliver a message into. No one reads the Bible in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is all of us read the Bible from a perspective that is somehow driven by our history, our upbringing, what's affected us in the past, perhaps our family influence, our cultural influence. And so it would be particularly bad, even arrogant, if we would think or suggest that we had a perfect understanding of what the Bible was trying to tell us, simply because all of it's already been somehow a bit distorted by its translation. But also, we would be saying that the way that I'm interpreting the Bible and speaking the message to you is perfect. And I don't think there's one of us can actually say that the way in which we preach and the message that we deliver is going to be delivered in its most pure form. It cannot be, because we've been influenced by so many things. That affects the way in which we read and interpret the Bible, so therefore it's going to affect the way in which we preach. And so, if we start to see and understand that, then we start to see and understand the relevance when it comes to Jesus of Galilee. Paul said, just on that, Paul said, so when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and he actually said in 1 Corinthians 9, become a Jew within Jews. And so, in a sense, today, we need to become a Jew within Jews. We need to become an Aborigine within Aborigines. We need to become an Indian to reach Indians, if you like. Because you see, in that context, we can become more familiar with their culture, and we can speak in a language and using illustrations that they can understand the best. And so, in our prime Christian example, we would say, well, okay, God became a human to be humans. And Jesus of Nazareth himself was conditioned in a social sense by his time and place. And so this becomes particularly important. And Jesus of Nazareth, he is the only Christ, and we are the only religion whose God became a human being in order to reach human beings. We're unique in that sense. And Jesus was conditioned in his time and place as well. And so he was a Jewish carpenter, born into a town. He's born in Bethlehem, spent very little time there, moved very quickly down to Nazareth in Galilee, and that's where he spent virtually all of his life, including in his ministry, apart from a very, very brief time. All of his work and all of his life was spent in the region of Galilee. And it's important that we get to see what that actually meant. And you see, God not just became a human being. He came back as a Jew. And he didn't just come back as a Jew, he came back as a Galilean Jew. And so Jesus and all of his disciples were identified as Galileans. Why did God, and you make you wonder, why God, in his sovereign power, would choose to come back as a human, to come back as a Jew in Galilee? At the end of the day, how does it make any sense when God in his sovereign power could have had himself come back as a priest in the temple, for instance, and he could have been brought up all his life in the temple and had all sorts of religious training and been accepted by the Jews of the day? Or he could have come back as a lawyer and been top of the tree in the courts of law and had such tremendous influence. He could have come back as a general over a huge army and just taken the kingdom by force. He could have come back as a businessman and had a huge business empire. He could have been any of these things. But God chose to come back as a human, not just a human, but a Jew, and a Galilean Jew in the town of Nazareth. Why is that? We've got to understand the significance of Galilee in the context of Jesus' ministry, because you see, when you have a look at Galilee, it's just such a small section of the country up to the north, surrounded by a lot of unfriendly neighbours. And not just surrounded, but there's all sorts of cultures that lived within Galilee. Egyptians, Phoenicians, Romans, Greeks, the whole lot were in this one particular little country. It was the most culturally diverse area of the land. Racially and culturally mixed. And in Matthew chapter 4, it's referred to as Galilee of the Gentiles. Language in Galilee was different because you see the Hebrew language in Galilee was distorted because of the huge amount of influences that came in there. And so what was originally pure Hebrew became distorted, became quite a rough language in a sense. It lost its finesse. And so the Galileans were distinctly separated according to their language. And so Peter could deny Jesus, in that outer court. Peter could deny Jesus, but he could not deny that he's a Galilean. Because after all, the little servant girl said, "You're one of them. You're a Galilean. I can tell by the way you speak." And so, if you was a Galilean, you were a Galilean, and there was no disguising. Galilee itself was a rich agricultural area. It actually had back in those days, it had 5 major cities on the banks of the Sea of Galilee. And in fact, the land was so rich and agriculturally productive that even, because they had no welfare system in those days, even the laziest of people could go down to Galilee and actually make a living off the land. And so it had a reputation, the people of the land, and it carried a stigma of being religiously uneducated. So people in Galilee they had this reputation. They were lazy, they were uneducated, and they had no real religion. The sentiments of the Orthodox Jews in Judea for the Galileans was that no man may marry the daughter of the Amorites because they were unclean animals and their wives like reptiles. The birthplace of the majority of the revolutionary movements was in fact in Galilee. Judas the Galilean, when Herod died, he went in and he stormed the arsenal, took all the weapons out of it, and they caused a great revolt. And when Pilate finally rounded them all up, he crucified something like 2,000 of these Jews, these Galilean Jews. All this happened within about 6 kilometres where Jesus actually lived. As a boy of about 8 to 10 years old. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that maybe that story would have got around. I think that possibly some of Jesus' own family would have been directly affected by some of that. Their friends, at least. And so, more Galilean Jews were crucified by the Romans than Jews of any other region. Jesus in Luke 13, 1-3 says, "Do you suppose," and he addressed this very issue where Pilate was mingling the blood of the Galileans with their own sacrifices. Jesus said, "Do you suppose that these Galileans are greater sinners than all other Galileans because they suffered this fate?" And he said, "I'll tell you no." Because he could see that the Jews of the days thought that they were sinners, that they deserved that sort of fate. The term Galilean took on a negative connotation. So Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, was pinned up above his cross when he was crucified. And so the message went out far and wide from the Roman authorities of the day that this is what we do to people that are uprisers and insurgents and rebels. And that's the way they treated them. So Galilee, the land of the rejected, the despised, outcast and foreigners. People escaped to Galilee from the religious purity of Jerusalem. Anyone that wanted to get away from extreme religiosity went down to Galilee. Down in Galilee they could remain anonymous and they could remain hidden from the rest of the world. Galilee was a long way from Jerusalem, which was the centre for religion. And it was a long way from Rome, which was the centre of law and government. It was a long way from Athens, which was the centre of culture and philosophy and the arts. Galilee was separated from all of them. There's not much going on for Galilee. Nothing good could come out of Galilee. Just rabble-rousers, half-breeds, ruthless and unrighteous people who despised the teachings of God. As a result, Galileans were regarded as fools, heretics and rebels. This was the reputation that Galileans held in that day. Jesus was a Galilean. We need to understand a little bit about why the Jews treated Galileans the way they did. And I think I'm painting a little bit of a picture. I hope you're getting this idea that this is the region that Jesus was brought up in. This is where he ministered all of his life. He only spent a very short time actually in Jerusalem. The Jews regarded ancestral purity as a condition and the importance for a pure Israel. And so you had to be able to prove that you were at least a fifth generation Jew with your genealogy before you could be a priest. You had to prove your ancestral purity before you could go in to be represented in the court of law. And we don't understand the Jewish insistence on ancestral and racial purity, and we start to understand why they started to view the Galileans the way they did. And so you could not even marry. That's why they looked at their marriages, because you had to prove that your genealogy would allow you to marry. And so the marriages were pre-arranged based on their genealogy, because they wanted to maintain purity within their race. This was particularly important after the exile, because where they were, it was deliberate ploy on the part of their enemy to racially mix them up and confuse them. So the Jews were very protective over genealogy. You can read so many books in the Bible and wonder why on earth they've got the genealogy pasted over all of those pages, because you see, even a 13-year-old boy could actually trace back his genealogy back to Abraham. And all of them could trace back their genealogy to say what tribe they belonged to, one of the 12 tribes. So it was very important for them to maintain their racial purity, that they could track the genealogy. Ancestral purity was important for salvation for the Jews. You see, if they could prove that their lineage went back to Abraham, and if their good works weren't enough, if they weren't righteous enough, they were a little bit poured out on sin, then they could have to go back and claim their genealogy back to Abraham, and that would be enough to save them, in their opinion. And so, not just their racial purity, but their salvation depended upon them being able to track back their history. But Galileans, by their racial and their cultural mix, were not only deprived of their earthly social status, but also of their heavenly inheritance. And you see, so a person's salvation depended on their ancestral purity. Galileans most times could not prove them. And so you had the Jews, basically, their opinion of the Galileans was that they were already predestined to go to hell. We're getting the story, we get the picture. John the Baptist, in Matthew 3:9, took him to task on this. And he said it's nothing to do with the fact that you can look back to Abraham as being your father. He said, you've got to repent to get to heaven. Jesus came along and he said, it's not ancestral purity that matters in the kingdom of God, but it's the belief in the Son of God. And not being descendants of Abraham that would actually save them. So those messages that John and Jesus preached were extremely offensive to the religious people of the day. Extremely offensive to the religious people of the day. So we see that the human scandal of God's methods, it doesn't actually just begin with the cross. It actually goes back to Jesus' very, very beginnings, where he was brought up in. That was the human scandal. He chose to be Galilean, and as such humbles himself to become the despised and the lowly of the world. So Jesus identifies with them, he becomes one with them, with these people. And, God chose to be a fool of the world for the sake of the world's salvation. And, at this point, it's just Isaiah 53, I think that he had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him. Nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. That was Jesus. Now, I don't know about you, but it's very easy to think of Jesus up there in his robes and his fine combed hair and his beard and looking very, very, appealing. But this is telling me a different story. He was despised. And so in Mark 1:9 and 14 to 15, he said that Galilee is not just the place in which Jesus comes from to be baptised, because he went up to Judea to be baptised, but it's actually where he went back to. It's actually where he goes, it's where he returns to conduct his public ministry. Jesus never despised his child roots or his people, and he come out of the very ghetto. When you look at it this way, Jesus actually come out of the very ghetto. And yet it was to the ghetto that he returned. And often we see in this day and age, if someone comes out of the ghetto and they look like they can get somewhere, they generally don't return to the ghetto, do they? Generally, they would put that in their past, because you see, I want to move ahead in my future, I want to move ahead in my destiny. My destiny is ahead of me, and it's better than where I've come from. But Jesus actually chose to return to the ghetto, anointed with power. So Jesus came from a ghetto, the somebody of God came out of Galilee, the place of nobodies, so that we could be a somebody. Jesus Christ returns to Galilee to form a new humanity, a whole new understanding and belief system, so that they can become the children of God. His people could have a hope and a future. No wonder Nathaniel said he was shocked to hear the Messiah was coming from Galilee. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? They truly did not believe that anything good could come out of Nazareth. Wouldn't you expect that if the Messiah was to come from anywhere, it would be from Judea, Bethlehem, or Jerusalem? That's where the prophets all come from, isn't it? And even when Nicodemus stood up to defend Jesus in the council, he was labelled a Galilean. If you're not a Galilean like them. And in this context, where do we come from? Where do we stand in this? Because you see, if we're on the wrong side of the tracks, in their opinion, if we're not a pure Jew, we're in exactly the same boat. We have no hope for salvation unless it was for Jesus Christ. We cannot rely on ancestral purity. We cannot rely on being sinless. And we cannot rely on religion for our salvation. Jesus came from an unacceptable place, but he was never apologetic about being a Galilean. Matthew chapter 1 clearly illustrates the people he identified with: murderers, thieves, adulterers, liars, foreigners. And the point of this genealogy is found in verse 21. He shall save his people from their sins. And his people desperately need saving. So Jesus' humanity becomes mixed in every sense: blood, social, class, culture, and race. And so this put him on the outside the circle of the socio-religious group, the Jews. John 1:11 says he came into his own, and his own received him not. No room at the inn. In those days, if you were a Galilean Jew and you rocked up in Bethlehem, you were not seen with great favour. And we often read the story and think, well, perhaps the inn was booked out. But I'm telling you that not so long ago, if you was an Aborigine in Australia, you weren't allowed to stay in some places. And if you rocked up there, the no vacancy signs went up. It was only in 1962 that the Menzies government changed the law in Australia so that Aborigines could have a constitutional right to vote. That's not so long ago. And a Galilean Jew rocking up in Bethlehem would have been pretty much the same as a Negro slave moving to a less favourable country or state in America. This is how they would have been received in that day. And so, when there was no room at the inn, they were made to sleep in the stable. Jesus experienced it all so that no one can say Jesus hasn't experienced my trial. And when we start to see his background, when we start to see how he was viewed by the religious people of the day in society, then you can start to appreciate even more how much he actually had to put up with and go through. The persecution wasn't just because of what he stood for, it was because of who he was. The offence didn't start at the cross. It started because of where he was born. The beautiful temple, the house of the Lord, was left desolate as the Son of God was born in the stable. He could have been born in the temple of God if the Jews had accepted him in the day. And so, he was born in a stable amongst farm animals where the neglected ones, the rejected ones, the shepherds and the foreigners could go and actually worship him. They wouldn't have been allowed in the temple. He was rejected by all, Galileans and Judeans alike in the end, because they both didn't understand the intent and the mission of creating a new humanity and bringing it into a oneness like the relationship that existed between God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit as we revealed in John 17, and that was his prayer. So what about today? You know, you and I and all the other social outcasts and misfits simply because of our background, whether it be unrighteous due to sin or whether it's our ancestral roots, previously been disqualified for God's salvation, we are in fact qualified. The good news is you are qualified. And it really is only because this man, Jesus Christ, the Galilean, the despised of the world, was the only true righteous man. No one saw it. But it's the truth. And we know it's the truth because you know if it wasn't, God would not, could not have risen him from the dead. The fact that he was risen from the dead proves that he was, in fact, the perfect sacrifice. And that you and I can put our faith in him for our salvation today. And there lies the truth. Because we know that Jesus risen from the dead was witnessed by so many people that it cannot even be ignored in the court of law today. What does it mean for you today? Jesus the Galilean. I hope that it changes a bit of a perspective about who he was and gives us an appreciation for the ministry that he carried in the context of that day. But more so than that, it actually needs to impact us concerning the context of the ministry that we need to carry today. And so if Jesus Christ, God, can view the lowly and the despised of the world with such love that he chose to come down and become one of them, that they should be saved. How much more should that change our perspective of the people around us? I don't know about you, but coming to a deeper understanding of Jesus the Galilean has given me a greater heart for the lost than I've ever had before. And you know what? As a church, there's a clear message. We cannot turn away anyone because of their background, their history, their genealogy. There's nothing, because Jesus Christ paints a very, very clear picture here about who he came to save. And the temple never had room. The state did. We need to be stable, folks, not a religious temple. So, in that, we just don't come here to play church. We have to be ambassadors for the kingdom in the real sense of the word. That begins within here, and that begins with how we view those people that are around us. Man alive, we were sitting down in Dandenong on Friday. We had a bit of lunch at the mall. And I've never seen such a diverse crowd. So much need. And I can understand why Jesus, when he said, even when John the Baptist had been beheaded and he got news of it, he went to retreat to a quiet place. I can imagine that Jesus would have been pretty distressed and in grief over that. And yet the crowd still followed him. The crowd followed him. And he had compassion on them because they were sheep without a shepherd. They were confused. And I thought myself, I was looking down there then, I thought, man, is that what Jesus is looking at? Next week we're going to talk a little bit about, this is what I believe the context of here is about, you and I, and how we view Jesus' ministry, where it came from, where it originated, what it was for, and how it changes potentially our perspective of what we need to be doing today as individuals. Next week, I'm going to talk a little bit about what that perspective, I think, means for the church. Okay? Jesus Christ paved the way through his teaching for us to hold to such a hope that he paid the price for the forgiveness of our sins, which previously rendered us disqualified and called us all sons and daughters. So ancestry means nothing, because we're of the same Heavenly Father, which dispensed with the ancestral disqualification as well. That's you and I, because of Jesus Christ, the sons and daughters of the Most High King. There is no better genealogy than that. Amen.